If you enjoy our videos and podcasts and would like us to continue putting out regular quality content, head over to patreon.com/aircrew interview, where you can donate monthly, and in return you will get rewards ranging from early interview viewings, bonus clips, credited as a producer, and much more. Thank you and enjoy. So Rain, what did you do after you came back from live operations?
Well, so coming back, I actually met my son for the first time. He was born while I was
Wow.
gone. But I spent about a year and a half at Shaw after the deployment, and there we're back into a normal training routine. So we're back to practicing defensive counter-air, suppression of enemy air defenses, but it's a normal, more or less, Monday through Friday type job with occasional TDYs out to Las Vegas for training and things like that. But that was the normal flow for the next 18 months or so.
Wow. And then in 2017, I mean, this is why people know you, became the Viper Demo Pilot. Can you talk us through this? Because I've seen some of your displays and wow, amazing, incredible.
It's an awesome plane. No, I was lucky, right place, right time with the right qualifications. I put my name in the hat and was fortunate enough to be selected to be the next demo pilot, and spent 2.5 years flying the F-16 demo across the globe, which was by far, I think, the best job. And it is the best job that's out there and probably the best job I'll ever have. I'm always waiting to see what's next, but definitely a great time doing that.
So how many pilots actually apply to be the demo pilot?
You know, I don't know. So that is Shaw specific. We used to have two
Right.
F-16 demos in the U.S., East Coast, West Coast, after sequestration when the government shut down back in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
When everything came back, only one Viper demo emerged due to budgetary constraints. So for the F-16, we keep it at Shaw specific. Like the F-22, for instance, they actually do a call across their entire F-22 fleet, asking for pilots to apply. And why we do it that way, I have no idea. But that's just, I guess, someone somewhere decided, hey, boss X, Y, or Z gets to choose, and that's how it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So again, right place, right time.
Well, a very lucky man. But can you talk us through who designs the actual display routine?
Yeah, so our design is actually written into our regulations.
Okay.
And it is the same routine, more or less, that's been around since the mid-90s. There's been some tweaks. We've actually removed one maneuver. We added in an extra high-speed pass. The only thing the demo pilot can tweak is really the repositions that we do. So in between each segment, we have two options. We can do a vertical reposition, so climb up and do a split S, right back down into it, or you can check away at 45 degrees. That's when you see the rolling reposition. As far as being able to tweak it or modify it, it requires a lot of work. When I flew at Oshkosh in 2018, I had to modify the profile because it was supposed to be non-aerobatic. So I actually had to remove all the aerobatic maneuvers, get that display approved for that sequence, go practice it in the simulator, go practice at my home station, and then have the wing commander watch me during a practice in order to certify it, and then I could go fly it at Oshkosh. So we can modify it. It's just it's a really extensive process in order to do it.
Yeah, it's really strange because we have, I'm guessing you're familiar with the Typhoon, but every year they change the display and the pilot normally gets to do the display, which I thought America would be, the same, or the USA would be the same. But maybe it's just more rules and regulations over there.
Yeah, the Canadian Hornet demo, each year they change it up. We have a Dutch exchange pilot who was assigned to the Gamblers, talking to him. So when the Dutch had their F-16 demo, every year the demo pilot would change it up. They'd actually give the routine to the university to let the aeronautical engineers go through it and validate it as kind of like one of their capstone projects, which I thought was kind of cool. But yeah, for whatever reason, we don't change it. I think a lot of it is, hey, in itself, I think it's a pretty cool demo. Most people are only going to see it once, on average,
kind of thing.
Yeah. And so it's going to be loud. It's going to be in your face. The objective is to go out there and reach people, inspire people. And I think it does it in itself. But, I flew it, I think 360 some odd times, so it was a lot of the same, but I was never bored doing it.
Yeah, how
It
can
was
you get
always,
bored with that?
yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So once you obviously became the demo pilot, can you talk us through when your flying training started, and how did it even work? Were you in a two-seater when it started?
Yeah, so it's about a 20 ride upgrade program, which is
Right.
fairly extensive as far as upgrades go in fighter community, but it's only 15-minute sorties, so that's why it's so long.
Yeah.
But you have about 9 rides in a two-seat, the D model, the family model, where you'll go out initially over at 5,000 feet for 2 sorties just to go through the maneuvers. Then you'll come back over the field at 2,000 feet, then 1,000 feet, then step down to 500 feet for about 9 rides total, and then eventually work your way down to 300 feet, which is our min target altitude is 300 feet, with a min altitude of 200 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll just practice at that. It was quite extensive as far as visibility goes. So we have initially our operations group commander, who's a colonel, will review it at about the 15 ride program or 15 ride point and certify you. That steps you down to the 300 foot level. Then another 2 rides, the wing commander, who owns the entire base, will watch you and approve it. And then it goes up to a 2-star general, and you do a demo in front of the 2-star. And then finally you actually have to travel typically and go fly in front of the commander of Air Combat Command, who's a 4-star, and he will certify you. So there's a lot of eyes on this. Every ride has a grade sheet. So as a demo pilot, you will review your HUD tape, make sure you didn't miss anything like an altitude or an airspeed that you didn't recognize airborne, which would be a bad thing. But you grade everything based on the criteria. The video, the grade sheet, all that goes up and makes it to a 2-star each and every time. So there's a lot of visibility that gets put on this. We've had a couple people killed. And I don't know if you saw the Pakistani Air Force just had an F-16 crash not too long ago. And looking at it, again, I don't have all the details, but it looks like he was performing a split S. So when it comes down to it, there's just no margin for error. So our altitude, our airspeed is so incredibly important. And I think that's why we put so much visibility on it in the U.S.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely important. But so from flying training to being certified, how long is that period?
So starting the process in about mid-December timeframe as far as actual flying and spin up. By the time you're through all your rides, you're looking about middle of February to be completely certified. Mm-hmm. And typically in the wintertime, probably much like England, the weather just gets worse, the ceilings are lower, so it just takes a little bit longer in order to get through, factor in Christmas holiday and things like that. Mm-hmm. So it's about a 2.5 month process from start to finish. You could do it much shorter. In fact, like with my replacement, we kind of did 2 iterations of it, but my replacement is flying now. We did a compressed timeline where we were flying constantly, and it's exhausting. So on an average sortie, 15 minutes, you're going to burn somewhere between 300 and 700 calories. Wow. So you fly twice in one day, especially in the beginning. Like it is absolutely draining. So we try to space it out too in the training to kind of like give you time to recover so that you can fully process and learn from the previous sortie and go out and apply it on the next.
And was this a full-time role, or were you also on a frontline fighter squadron at the time?
So full-time job, and we're actually, as a demo pilot, that can be our only responsibility. That said, as single ship demo pilots, we still maintain our mission qualification. So I would have to do a mission check every single year, check ride. So
right.
It becomes a pretty big challenge, and the dynamics of it, it gets be cumbersome to get into the squadron and fly tactical sorties because you're just taking resources away from them.
Yeah.
So during like surge operations where they needed extra bodies, I would always fly as much as I could with them. But typically, maintenance, attrition, or weather, the first guy who's going to get cut is you, because you don't need that proficiency sortie in whatever mission set you're going to have to do. Mm-hmm. So it's I would try to fly as much as I could, but it typically be just flying a bunch of demos in order to keep the air up underneath me.
Yeah, and this could be a difficult or an easy one for you, Ryan. Favorite maneuver or pass from your time on the demo?
I really like the dedication pass. It is a tough one because it's a lot of fun, but the dedication pass, you're low, you're hauling the mail like 620 knots, 9 Gs, just trying to, again, rip the stick off. But that's usually, you're always going to get that vapor coming over the wings. And, we do that pass too, the narration. We're doing it for those who've gone before us and served, who've made the ultimate sacrifice. So the that piece of it too definitely adds to why it's my favorite maneuver.
Yeah, I think my probably favorite maneuver. I think did you flew at Riyadh, didn't you?
Yeah,
UK.
no, that was Toro. Yeah, that was
It was
Toro.
a Toro. Oh, okay. Well, from your demo, it was probably where you like put the reheat to the crowd. I
Yeah,
think that great, like is
oh,
it minimum
yeah,
radius turn or something? Yeah.
yeah. The Falcon turn too. That's where you turn 90 out, and it's just can on the crowd, which is that's another one that's good. And again, it's just trying to make as much noise as possible, go as fast as you can, is what I always said.
And it certainly makes some bloody noise, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, do you have a memorable show or air show you flew at that sticks out in your mind, Rain?
I was so fortunate because I have a lot. I mean, there's so many that I got, from, I think Miami is probably the most memorable, flying low around buildings and things like that. But it really came
Saw that
down to like
video.
people. And there's so many different people in the air show industry, all these different places that put on incredible shows you got to work with. It was just really cool. From, again, I flew everywhere from like Rio Negro to Canada to the Middle East. It was just a really awesome experience to be able to travel and kind of showcase the U.S. Air Force and the F-16 to people all across the globe. It was definitely a cool experience.
Did you ever have to like just pinch yourself and think like, this is crazy?
I would have that moment honestly in the jet doing the heritage flight with a Mustang,
Yeah.
because you can actually hear the Merlin motor
Oh,
on
can
its
you
wing.
really?
Which you think about, you're in the cockpit making a bunch of noise, you got your helmet on, double ear protection, and you can still hear that motor. Because that's the plane I fell in love with as a kid. My grandfather was a gunner on a B-17 in World War II, so
Wow.
tying all that in for me was one of those where like, hey, I'm 3 feet from a priceless warbird that has no ejection seat. I need to be really focused right now.
Yeah.
But you have to pull yourself back and say, this is real life. This is crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm so jealous. So how would you compare the US demo compared to like our European counterparts? Like the Belgians or Denmark and stuff like that, or even the Turks.
Yeah, so I know Vader. I've met Vader a couple of times. I've never seen his display in person. I've only watched it online, and it looks like it's just an AB the entire time, which would probably be just epic to watch. So really, it's cool. So the F-16 demos I got to see, any of the Typhoon at Dubai and Bahrain. It was fun to watch those and see the different capabilities of those planes and what they showcased. Obviously the F-16 is like the one I understand the most. And I saw the Emirati Block 60 fly twice. So just seeing how I guess what they want to focus on, because I'm trying to, for me, I was like, hey, I want to focus on, you just watch me pull 9Gs and now I can climb straight up and I'm accelerating, maybe some there's a little bit more finesse in the rolling. It just kind of depends. So I always like watching to see what that pilot is trying to show with that plane.
Awesome. So, Rain, how many years did you actually fly with the team?
I did 2.5 years as a demo pilot, which is normally built for 2 years. I got a little extension on the back end, which I wasn't complaining about because it was awesome to be able to fully leave active duty Air Force flying the F-16 demo.
But I'm going to ask a few questions from our patrons here, Rain, before we get into the last few questions that are a bit more personal. But if you're happy with that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Right, so this is from Gary Fairley. The solo F-16 is about showing the jet and its performance capabilities to the highest level. But how do you adapt and coordinate your routine when flying with older and slower aircraft in the heritage flight?
Yeah, so Gary, it's definitely a challenge because that last pass in the demo profile is the dedication pass. In there, you're exiting, show left, doing about 620 knots, and you pulled 9.5 Gs that entire time. Not to mention, the previous 12 minutes, you're ripping your face off. Again, so the heart rate is up and you're really just, again, as you said, you're trying to max perform the F-16 and showcase that. So it is just a controlled effort to, during that rejoin, which is anywhere from 15 seconds to 45 to 60 seconds, kind of catch your breath, let things settle down, and then knowing too, if you're not quite there yet, like you can just be a little wide before you move it in position. But that, I think, and I've said it before, is probably the most challenging piece of it, because it's very easy to fly by yourself. You're not worried about anything. But when you go from flying by yourself, maximum performing the aircraft, to going to the low end of the spectrum, the back end of the power curve, flying slower than F-16 wants to fly, next to this priceless warbird with no ejection seat, it is a bit challenging and requires a lot more focus after you just exerted yourself for 12, 15 minutes.
What specific block of F-16, e.g. Block 30, Block 52, would you fly a 1v1 BFM and why?
Well, I want to fly anything that has a Pratt & Whitney engine if I have a GE engine, because it'll be a lot easier to clobber it. But the Block 30, like big mouth motor, clean jet, like it's got a lot of power. It's a lot. Some guys will get into it. I have never fought another F-16 that has analog flickus. So the Block 50 that I flew has digital flickus, so flight control logic there. And from what I've heard, the analog flickus will allow you to actually get a quicker rate per second in some instances.
All right.
So a lot of like our European allies, like I think it's coming from like our Dutch exchange pilot, who prime example of having to flown their Block 10s to go in to fly the Block 50. He's kind of seen it all, and I don't have that experience, but I think when it comes down to it, if I can fly anything with a two designation behind it for a Pratt & Whitney engine, that's the easy answer.
Yeah. And the final patron question that I've chose is from Joe Kunzler. Hey Rain, can you tell us how easy is it to drop a JDAM from the F-16?
Well, it depends, but it is pretty easy. There's a lot that goes into it. So on that deployment, it was not uncommon to be, you're a two ship and you're going to drop 8 bombs in one pass, 4 between each aircraft. When it comes into that, making sure that you have the right coordinates, everything is dialed in, you're giving the bomb the right kinematic energy, is really important and sometimes challenging when you factor in weather. But inherently, the JDAM is definitely much easier than anything else we've ever done. There's just new complexities that go about it. And so I'd say coming down to it, it would be a lot of practice between the flight lead and the wingman, where we would make sure we've read back, we've gotten the right info, we've understood the information correctly that's come from the ground. We've inputted all that data into our systems. And you're doing a lot of button pushing, so the ability to make an error is increased. Reading that back between the aircraft, doing all this in a very timely manner while positioning the formation so that we're able to run in and drop weapons as fast as possible is the challenging part to that. But again, it comes down to it. You've either generated a coordinate with your targeting pod and taken that laser GPS information and squirted into the bomb, or you've typed in the coordinates. And so it really can be pretty easy.
Well, great answers there, and thank you very much for answering our patrons' questions there. And we're going to get some personal questions to get a bit more behind the man. So do you have any hobbies, Rain?
Yeah, I'm actually a big woodworker. I've neglected it the past couple of years with all my moves in the Air Force, but now kind of settled down in the Atlanta area, and so looking to build my my woodworking shop. But I grew up helping my dad in the house. We were always my perpetual project was finishing our basement and redoing that. So I've always kind of taken that from being able to do work around the house to building furniture is kind of where I like to do. And then general aviation, I'm getting back into that now.
Awesome.
There's been some nice weather here lately, and watching these like RV-8s fly around is kind of killing me.
And I reckon I know the answer to this question, but favorite aircraft you have flown?
Yeah, I mean, that's easy. It's the F-16, like there's nothing that will beat that, I don't think.
Is there an aircraft you wish you could have flown that you haven't?
There are a lot. I think in the end, the Mustang is the plane I want to fly because that's the one I fell in love with as a kid. But all of them are unique and all of them have different qualities, obviously. But I think if I could get into a Mustang, I'd be a pretty happy camper.
Yeah, I think that would be probably one of my favorites as well. I would love to get into that thing, or just any aircraft, really, to be honest. But you also have an awesome new podcast called The Afterburner. Can you tell us about this and where can we find it?
Yeah, the Afterburn podcast. It's on iTunes, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio. But what I'm trying to do is bring together a community of aviators, military, whatever it might be, to share their stories, because everyone has a story. We can all learn from one another. And so far, it's been a mix of aviators and Army. I just had episode 8, Caleb Brewer, Green Beret, stepped on a pressure plate IED in Afghanistan, lost both his legs, one above the knee, one below the knee. I actually met him while surfing. I did an air show in California.
Wow.
Individual took us surfing, and I met Caleb there. I was flailing, just trying to surf, and Caleb's over there surfing. So he's a true inspiration to me, and I think a lot of people will find that. But it's bringing people together like Caleb and sharing their story so that the world knows, like, hey, we all go through things. We all have hurdles. We all have obstacles. But you're not there alone. Someone's probably done it before or dealt with something similar, and maybe you can learn from it.
So is this like a weekly podcast, a monthly podcast, or just when you have the time to get these episodes out? Like, tell us about this.
Yeah, so every 2 weeks, I have that there. And then I also have a Patreon website as well with some additional content and a lot of the Patreons participating questions. And then, again, early access to content and just a little bit additional content that you won't get there to kind of fill the gaps between every 2 weeks. Hopefully one day be able to grow and have a little bit more frequency, but I just don't have the time in my life. I know you can attest, putting these podcasts together is actually, it's quite intensive as far as the workload that goes into it. So I guess if I did this as my full-time job, I'd have more, but that doesn't pay the bills.
Yeah, this is my full-time job, but yeah, I don't think people, understand. They just think, like, where's the next episode? And you're like, well, it takes a lot of time and work. Yeah. And unfortunately, people, don't understand that. But I think we can find you on Twitter as well. No, Instagram. Could you tell us what your handle is for that?
Yeah, Rain Waters 27 over on Instagram. And obviously, there's a lot of content I have from the demo days, just trying to mix general aviation all together there. So if people are looking for some cool videos and photos, there might be one or two up there, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a great, you got a great little channel there, and it's absolutely brilliant. But if you can tell people where to find you on Patreon, have you got like the address for that? Yeah,
it's the Afterburn Podcast. So if they go to patreon.com/the Afterburn Podcast, or just search for the Afterburn Podcast, they'll be able to find it there. And again, the hope is to be able to bring more content to people, and Patreon is an awesome platform to be able to support the show, get more content, and that's the plan. That's the goal, is hopefully expand and grow into more. Because as you mentioned it too, like we were trying, the 24th, I think, for about a month now, we've been trying to link up. So it's a lot of effort.
Certainly is. But hopefully your channel's going to grow and your content's going to grow, because it's absolutely brilliant. I think you're a great host on the podcast, and great content on Instagram. And Rain, I just want to thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been absolutely brilliant to hear, a bit of your story.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome.